When I arrived at my aunt's house that summer, I had no idea the few weeks ahead would change how I saw someone I'd known my whole life. The heat was intense as I stepped out of the car, tossing my bag over my shoulder. My aunt immediately enveloped me in a warm hug. The familiar smells of fresh laundry and coffee filled the house. It was comforting, like stepping into a place I'd always belonged, but I couldn't stop thinking about Adrian, my cousin. He had always been effortlessly confident, the kind of person who seemed to fill any room just by walking in. Thinking about him made me chest tighten, stirring feelings I thought I had long buried. Adrian leaned casually in the doorway, smiling that same mischievous grin I'd remembered. Even in just a t-shirt and shorts, there was something magnetic about the way he carried himself. It tried to focus on saying something clever, but words failed me. Finally, working on some muscle, he teased, nudging me playfully. I rolled my eyes. I'm in shape, I shot back. Adrian aloft, the sound somehow making my chest flutter. Just then, Aunt Linda appeared with a water bottle, smiling knowingly at both of us. Be courteous to your cousin, she said, teasing. Adrian gave a lazy salute, and I couldn't help but smile at their playful banter. The next few days fell into a comfortable rhythm, swimming, playing basketball, gaming, and just hanging out. It was easy to slip into those sentiments that felt natural. Yet I found myself noticing the little things about Adrian. The way he laughed, his easy confidence, the way he seemed to make every moment brighter. One evening, as we laughed over something silly, I realized just how much I had missed being close to him. Something about this summer about being here with Adrian Madem see him differently. And for the first time, I wasn't trying to hide it. At one point, I joked, neither of us is leaving the couch, but if we sit too close, our legs might brush. We laughed, but somehow we ended up sprawled across his room after another long, lazy day. Adrian was lounging with an arm over his face, half watching TV. I sat on the floor, leaning back against his dresser, pretending to follow along with the show, even though my mind was elsewhere. Then he broke the silence. Ever think about doing something different? His tone was casual, but it made my heart race. I laughed awkwardly, trying to sound nonchalant, though I'm sure he could tell exactly what I was feeling. That same effortless Adrian charm was there. Calm, confident, completely natural. I tried to keep my thoughts in check, but my head was spinning. He seemed to say these things almost without thinking, and yet every word lingered with me long after. The rest of the night was filled with small conversations, playful teasing, and shared laughter. But his words kept replaying in my mind. Was he testing the waters? Or was it just idle curiosity? I couldn't tell. The next morning, I woke up still thinking about it. I reminded myself to take things slowly, that our summer together was supposed to be fun, light, and uncomplicated. The house was quiet as I made my way to the kitchen, half awake. Aunt Linda had left for work and Adrian was nowhere to be seen. I poured myself a bowl of cereal, trying to push my thoughts aside. Then I felt steps behind me. Adrian appeared, stretching and yawning, casual as ever. You almost choked on your cereal, he said, smirking. I tried to ignore the flutter in my chest and focused on eating. He grabbed a drink and leaned against the counter, watching me for a moment. About last night, he said casually. Nothing crazy, just interesting. I shrugged, keeping my expression neutral. Even as my mind replayed every detail, he nodded, gave that familiar grin, and walked away, leaving me with a swirl of thoughts and a sense that maybe, just maybe, this summer would change everything. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding, feeling a brief sense of relief until Adrian turned back. Oh, by the way, he said casually, some of the guys are dropping by later. Hope you're ready. I wrinkled my nose, uneasy. But before I could protest, his friends arrived. Nathan, Evan, Leo, and the rest of Adrian's usual crew. Loud, cocky, and full of energy, they matched Adrian perfectly. We spent the day outside playing basketball and jumping into the pool whenever the heat became unbearable. Even amidst all the fun, I noticed Adrian watching me from time to time. There was something in the way he looked at me, a teasing curiosity I couldn't quite place. Later that evening, when the guys were sprawled around, laughing over some ridiculous story, Leo leaned closer to Adrian. You ever played Truth or Dare? He asked. Adrian raised an eyebrow. Yes, what kind of question is that? Leo smirked. Perfect! We're playing just like that. The game started with the usual silly dares. Running around, goofy jokes, silly challenges. Nothing serious at first, just classic summer chaos. But as the night went on, the energy shifted. Nathan turned to me with a mischievous glint in his eye. Truth or dare, Jasper? I hesitated. Truth felt too revealing, but my competitive side kicked in. Dare, I said. Nathan's smile widened. All right, I dare you to do something bold. Just have fun with it. The guys laughed, nudging each other, but I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Adrian leaned forward on his elbows, that familiar teasing smile on his face as if silently daring me to go for it. My stomach twisted, my heart raced, so I played along. I pulled a harmless prank. Maybe a playful splash of water in the pool or a goofy move during a mini basketball challenge. The guys cheered, laughing and shouting, and Adrian clapped the loudest. Didn't think you'd actually do it, he said, grinning. I forced a laugh, my mind spinning. It wasn't about the dare. It was about the way Adrian had looked at me, the little spark of connection that made my chest tighten whenever he smiled. That night, as the group shifted to talking about football and upcoming parties, I nodded along, but my thoughts kept returning to that playful moment, even if it was just a silly dare. Something about Adrian lingered in my mind. I knew that this summer was going to be full of unexpected moments, and I couldn't wait to see what came next. Even after the game ended, I couldn't shake my thoughts about Adrian. Why did it feel like he hadn't entirely moved away from the moment of the dare? I reminded myself he was my cousin and we were just having fun. That was all. Still, small moments kept catching me off guard. When we were near the couch, our knees accidentally brushed. My heart jumped, though I knew it was nothing. It needed air, so I got up, stretching and trying to calm myself. Nathan noticed. Long day. Think I'm going to crash? Hes said, heading for the door. The others groaned about leaving, but Adrian didn't argue. They all said their goodbyes, and I took the chance to retreat to my room, closing the door behind me and finally exhaling. A few minutes later, I heard Adrian's footsteps. The front door had clicked shut, but then his voice called softly. Hey, you okay? He asked as he leaned against the doorway. I forced a laugh. Yeah, just tired, I shrugged. Adrian stepped inside, eyes curious. Not strange at all, he said. Seems like you sprinted out earlier. I tried to appear casual. Just wanted some quiet. He gave me that knowing look, smiling faintly. Okay, fair. Don't overthink it. We ended up sitting on opposite sides of the room, letting the quiet settle around us. For the first time that day, I felt normal again. Adrian yawned and stretched, casually moving toward the door. Good night, Jasper, he said with a grin before leaving. I sat on my bed staring at the ceiling. My thoughts were spinning, but I reminded myself he was my cousin. It was just summer, and the day had been full of silly games. Still, something about the way he said goodnight lingered. Playful and light, leaving me wondering if maybe he had felt the same spark I did. And for the first time since the summer began, I realized this wasn't just about a game. Something more was brewing, and I had no idea where it might lead. The next morning, I woke with a pounding headache, my mind still racing from the previous night. My dreams had been a jumble of the evening before. Adrian's smile, his jokes, his effortless charm. For him, it had probably been nothing. For me, it felt like everything. I groaned and forced myself out of bed. I couldn't spend the day overthinking. Adrian was me cousin, and this was just summer fun. It had been a silly game, nothing more. I grabbed some clothes and headed to the kitchen, hoping to distract myself. The house was quiet for a moment until I heard the shower running. I rolled my eyes, reminding myself not to dwell on anything. Moments later, Adrian appeared in the kitchen, casually sipping a drink, hair still a bit messy from the morning. Morning? He said with a grin. Nodded, twisting the cap of my water bottle, trying to act normal. Going for a run? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, I muttered, hoping the movement would clear my head. Sure you're not running away from something? He teased lightly. I laughed, pretending not to be affected. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was running from my own thoughts. The rest of the day, I kept myself busy reading, playing games, and doing anything to avoid thinking too much about Adrian. By sunset, I finally felt some relief, convinced the previous night was behind me. But then I heard a knock at my door. Adrian was leaning casually against the frame, grinning like nothing had happened. Want to head out tonight? Hesked. I hesitated for a moment, thinking about all the chaos that could come with friends and games. And yet for some reason I couldn't bring myself to say no. Sure, I mumbled, and Asmal's smile tugged at my lips. Adrian smiled. Cool, let's head out. When we arrived at Nathan's party, the place was packed. People spilled out of the living room and into the backyard, music blaring. I grabbed a drink and tried Toon Wind on the patio, but it was impossible. Adrian moved through the crowd effortlessly. chatting with everyone, laughing and charming the room like it was second nature. After a few minutes, I realized he'd been watching me the whole time. My heart skipped. Maybe it was just me being tired or the drinks talking, but I decided to test the waters. I laughed a little louder than usual at a joke someone told, brushing past a girl casually. Adrienne's reaction was immediate. I was alert, focused, and clearly paying attention. I couldn't help it. I leaned into the moment, joking and teasing just enough to see if he'd respond. Sure enough, he came over calmly, putting a hand on my arm and saying, "Hey, I was talking to you." I laughed nervously. "Just having fun," I said, smiling. We stepped outside away from the crowd, both catching our breath. Hai's eyes met mine, sharp and unreadable. "Why are you acting like that?" he asked, shaking his head with a grin. "Why, Adrian? You don't like seeing me joking around?" I teased. He laughed, rolling his eyes. But there was something playful in the way he looked at me, a mix of challenge and amusement. The night air was cool, and the tension between us was more about emotions than anything physical. The ride home was quiet. Neither of us spoke much, lost in our own thoughts. I noticed the way he seemed thoughtful, maybe replaying the evening in his mind, just like I was. When we got home, Adrian stepped out of the car, running a hand through his hair before heading inside. I followed, closing the door behind me. Later, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about the night, the playful teasing, the way he'd focused on me, and that familiar mix of admiration and challenge that had always made me feel so drawn to him. Adrian was my cousin, my friend, and yes, my crush. But for now, it was just summer, just fun, and that was enough. I couldn't shake what had happened the night before. Why had Adrian seemed so affected by me joking around with someone else? My mind replayed the evening over and over. Sleep didn't come easy. I tossed and turned, exhausted but restless. When I finally got up, it was the middle of the night. The house was quiet, only the hum of the air conditioning filling the hall. I wandered the corridor, trying to shake off the strange tension lingering from the day. I paused at Adrian's lightly ajar door. Maybe he had forgotten to close it. I reminded myself to leave. It was late, and I didn't want to disturb him. Through the sliver of moonlight, I could see him asleep, face relaxed and calm, nothing like the confident energy he carried during the day. I quietly turned to leave, feeling a mix of admiration and nostalgia for the cousin I'd always looked up to. For a moment, I paused just outside the door, thinking about how complicated feelings could get, even in a normal summer. But I reminded myself to step back, giving him space, and walked away. The quiet night and soft shadows made everything feel heavier, full of unspoken words and awkward energy. I returned to my room, trying to calm my thoughts. Sleep finally came slowly with dreams that were lighter, though Adrian and the day's events lingered in my mind. The tension between us had been building for days, maybe even years, and it finally came to a head, but in a way that wasn't physical. Words, glances, and small gestures had said more than either of us could admit. We found ourselves sitting side by side in the quiet of his room, the chaos of the party and day long behind us. Every glance felt loaded. Every joke carried an unspoken challenge. I could sense Adrian's focus on me, and I realized how much we both had been holding back, each waiting for the other to make the first move. "Are you seriously just going to sit there?" I asked, trying to sound casual but feeling my heart race. Adrian smirked, shaking his head. "You're impossible," he said. We laughed nervously at first, then easier as the silence settled around us. For a moment, it felt like everything outside that room had disappeared. The laughter, the music, the heat of the summer. It was just us. Two people navigating something new, confusing and strangely exhilarating. Finally, Adrian ran a hand through his hair, letting out a deep breath. This is weird," he admitted quietly, his eyes meeting mine. "Yeah," I said, nodding, feeling a mix of relief and tension. "But I think we're figuring it out." We laughed softly, the moment heavy with unspoken words, yet lighter than any physical interaction could have made it. For the first time, it felt like we could be honest with each other, even if just a little. And for that summer night, that was